edition of Up Close with Colin Thompson is brought to you by Linda's Group of Companies. Why go anywhere else?
And welcome back. Well, Mr. Darrell, in the previous segment, you touched a bit on Wellington Rovers, the mighty Wellington Rovers.
Yes.
Obviously, where your career all began. Take us back from the very beginning.
Okay. I had mentioned that in 1959, the Rovers were preparing to go on a trip to the East Coast to play a series of games. And my brother Gilbert was a part of that group. I was a 12-year-old. And I used to go down to all the training sessions, get involved in some of them, retrieve the balls for them. If the guys needed a drink, and just run errands and do whatever was required, whatever they needed. And thoroughly enjoying every minute of it. And getting near the time for the trip, I don't remember which player it was, but a couple of them got in the team meeting and said, listen, this little guy's been here helping us all this time. Why don't we all just chip in and buy him a ticket and take him along with us as our ball boy, And as so said, so done. And they came to me and said, all you need to do, we'll get your ticket in the hotel, get yourself some spending money, and you're coming with us on this trip. So I went on this trip to New York, New Jersey. They played about a half a dozen games, I guess it was. And there's one game that stands out in my mind and they played in Fall River, Massachusetts. It was a night game. It was more like an American football game because the players on the opposing team were not really footballers, soccer players. They were more physical. And it got pretty physical. And then a couple of our players like Russell Knights and Charger Reed and these guys got tired of taking it, so they started to retaliate. And before you knew it, the field was swamped. And we're looking around and there's like 11, 12, 14 of us and 100 of them. Who said, it's enough of that. They said, grab our bag, get on the bus and get out of here. Because it became really kind of threatening. So the way I got home, found out about it. When I got back home, my nickname for a while was Fall River, because of the incident that happened over there. But after that, in '59, going to the East End Primary School, that's when I first met Donald Dane. He was there as a school teacher. He ended up coaching the primary school team, East End Primary School team. We won the primary school championship with him, 59-60. And then most of us moved on to St. George's Sac. And it was during our time at St. George's Sac that they formed the Bermuda Junior Football Association. Conrad Simons, Bert Simmons, I can't remember the correct name. So Walter Roberts, group of guys got together and decided they'd form a junior football association because they only had junior football in a white league. They only had a white league for junior players, so they formed what was the black league. And most of the players from the primary school at East End and St. George's Sac formed the St. George's Youth Club. And we played there for a number of years. And then as we moved on to senior football, we were not affiliated with anybody at any club. We had St. George's Colts and you had Wellington Rovers and St. George's. And we were like on an independent little group. So when it came time to go to senior football, we had to make a decision to join one of those clubs because we couldn't be registered on our own. So we approached the clubs and said, we're interested in becoming a part of your organization. And we went to St. George's Colts and they said, okay, fine. At that time, you had a reserve division, an East and West reserve division. They said, you can come with us. But some of our conditions were, whichever club we went to, we wanted to stay together as a team. And we wanted to keep our colors. Our colors were green and black. We went to St. George's Colts and they said, no, you come in, we're going to filter you into amongst the other teams that we have, and we definitely will stay together. Our club colors are light blue and dark blue, you'd have to change. We went to Wellington Rovers and they said, whatever you want, keep your colors, keep your team together. We'd even give you a couple of senior players to help strengthen your team. There's a player named Reggie Red Smith, a little short fella, midfield player, defender, and Connie Weller, a utility player. So they came and joined us to strengthen the youth team, and we went on to play in the Eastern Division of the Reserve Football. And from then on, it was reserve football, and then most of us stayed and went out with Wellington Rovers in the first division at that time. Oh, sorry, second division. Gained promotion to the first division, and that's where I played until I left St. George's to move into Hamilton and join Devonshire Colts.
Wow. Was it a tough
Well,
decision to make for you?
It was a tough decision because all my friends were still playing for Wellington Rovers. My brother Gilbert was playing there. There's a guy, Jimmy Copeland, a Scottish guy that came over, ended up coaching and playing for Wellington Rovers and St. George's Colts. And he basically said to me, if you leave, I'm gonna break your leg. You're not leaving us down here to St. George's. But I eventually did, and it was mainly because I had moved out of St. George's. It made more sense for me to find a team in town, and I was approached by Mr. Dane. We already had established a relationship that I ended up playing for Devonshire Colts. But my early days were definitely Wellington Rovers that I thoroughly enjoyed, and this was the foundation was set. Playing and growing up around players like Eddie Wright, Dennis Wainwright, who I ended up playing with in the national team in the Pan Am Games. My brother Gilbert, Charger Reed, Granville Strudel, Waldron, Maxwell Hardrop, Burgess, Sub Beazer Smith, Big Sub, not Little Sub, his Sub, the older brother, Dick DeTrott. All these guys were very good players, and so I had good people around me and a good grounding for my game.
What was it like, for you when Wellington Rovers unfortunately folded, like
Yeah.
many other teams of that era?
Yeah, so by that time I was out of St. George's and playing for Devonshire Colts, but I was still very, very disappointed. Because before I left down there were attempts made to merge the two clubs, St. George's Colts and Wellington Rovers. Very much like what happened in Somerset, is Somerset Colts and West End Rovers. Had that merge happened, we might have had the same success that had a Silver City in St. George's, but it never really happened. And as it turned out, St. George's, Wellington Rovers kind of folded and went out, and St. George's Colts were able to maintain and keep a team going, and still do have a team going now.
So when you made this move to Colts, who were some of the players you're now surrounded by at Colts?
At the Colts, okay.
It's Devonshire Colts.
Right.
Let's be clear on that.
Well, apart from Mr. Dane, the other people that influenced my coming there were Willis Ken and Marcus Douglas. So we were part of the national team at the Pan Am Games, and this all happened. My move happened just at the end of the season prior to that. And, they kind of talked me into about coming to play for Colts. So, and then I went there, you found, and Gordon Chamandali. So we had Bum Simmons, Gordy, Pepe, Willis, Marcus, Oliver Casey. So there's all the players that were there when I came, Dawson Swan. So they were really a very good team. A good team.
Wow. So, and you were still a young man.
Yeah, like the rest of those guys. We were all around the same age at that time. Yeah, but that wasn't an easy decision. Leaving my hometown and all my friends who I'd grown up with through primary and high school in the St. George's Youth Club and my early senior years with Wellington Rovers, but it just made more sense to find a team in the area. And that's why I ended up with Devonshire Colts.
So you grew up in St. George's. Where exactly did you grow up in St. George's?
Right, actually born in St. George's. Born in a house in St. George's. Right on the stretch, if you're coming into St. George's, you pass the entrance to the cricket club, going over the hill. As soon as you get to the top of that little hill there, along that stretch there, you'll see there's a vegetable stand on the side. I don't know if you're familiar with it, but right across the street from there, there's a house on the road and a pink house behind it. That's where I was born and grew up. My family, my brothers and all. Mm-hmm. It's a nice place to grow up in St. George's. Yeah.
Yeah. And you when you mentioned the time, and I'm thinking, it wasn't too long. The airport was developed and opened up, and then you mentioned going away. I'm sure it wasn't on a jet.
No.
It was a prop job.
Sure.
What was that experience? Was that your first trip, by the way?
My very first trip.
What was that?
It was a trip. I'm telling you. Didn't know what to expect. I do remember my ears clogging up and not feeling very well, and still feeling not well when the flight landed. But the drive from the airport into the hotel, everything changed. The bright lights, the high-story building. Seeing it for the first time, I forgot about feeling sick. I was just excited to be in the United States, you know. So that was a real thrill. My first trip, never to be forgotten. And I didn't travel again until 1967 when I went to the Pan Am Games. 59, I'm the ball boy for Dennis Wainwright and these guys. 67, I'm a teammate of Dennis Wainwright and some of the other players. So,
wow.
Yeah.
And who were some of the other players on that team? And what that team, they did quite well, didn't they? 67?
Yeah, they won the silver medal.
Silver medal at Pan Am Games. Where was it?
In Winnipeg, in Canada.
In Canada.
Yeah.
Wow, you have a lot of memories of it.
Yeah. And really, I remember saying we were told, okay, we're going for the experience. We didn't expect to do very well. But you couldn't tell the players that. We were ready to go and do what was necessary. We ended up losing to Mexico in the final. We beat Trinidad in the semifinal. I'll never forget that. Trinidad were a good team, played nice football. We were not as smooth as they were. You know, we were a real hard grafting team, good players in it. Clyde Best, Lionel Baldy Smith, Bobby Daniels, Tinty Mean, Jack Romaine, Rudy Miners, you know, Pappy Dio, Willis, and Marcus, you know, just good players. What we played, it wasn't a short passing game, it was more hard work and using our strength and our speed stuff. So when Trinidad had already beaten Argentina and some other teams in the tournament, they were already singing about this piece of cake. They played Bermuda in the semifinal, we're in the final. And we ended up beating them 3-1. They used to sing a song, I can't remember what it was. You know, the Trinidadians always had some sort of rhythm going on. And they sang this song prior to the game to try and intimidate us. At the end of the game, after we had beaten them 3-1, we sang the song back to them. That didn't go down very well. and then as it turned out, even some of the players on that team, Lincoln Phillips, Victor Gamaldo, Bert Grau, they're some of the players I ended up playing with when I went to Washington. Because Lincoln, as you know, was the coach at Howard University. And we ended up living in the same little town in Columbia, Maryland.
Wow.
Yeah, that was quite an experience.
But that team was, that Pan Am team was strong.
That's a good team. Yeah.
And when you look at the composition of it, I mean, battling for places must have been intense, to say the least.
You know, prior to the selection of the team, we played the United States here in an Olympic qualifying game, and they really were bigging up Clyde, you know, Bermuda's Pelé and all sorts of expectations, big things that Graham was building him up. And whether it was the pressure or not, but he didn't have a good game. You know, he kind of, because of the build-up, was disappointing to most people, but, you know, he didn't play badly. He just wasn't up to what was expected. And the next game, they traveled to the U.S. to play. I didn't travel, I wasn't selected. Clyde went, but I don't think he started. We came back, and prior to the selection of the Pan Am game team, we had a match against Chelsea were visiting us, and the national team playing Chelsea or Devonshire Rack. And to this day, I'm convinced that it was Clyde's performance on that game and my performance that got us selected to go to Winnipeg. We had good games, and that just kind of clinched our spot in the team because the competition was keen. When you knew this national team being put together, you heard they were going to be named in the paper tomorrow, you got to look to see if your name was there. There was no case of having to ask people. They were waiting and keen to be a part of the national program. And the competition was very, very keen.
Wow. So what did you do outside of football? You know, what were, you know, some of the, you know, other employment coming up? And
other interests, okay.
Did you went to school overseas?
Yeah.
Did you get?
No, East End School, St. George's Sack School, as far as I went there.
Mm-hmm.
I was a member of the Bermuda Militia Artillery Band. Actually, I think it might have been around 66, 67, the Pan Am Games came around, that I was actually had been approached and considered to go off to England and to become the music director of the Bermuda Militia Artillery. And I guess my interest was more in football. I do remember getting the word that you seem to be more interested in football, we choose somebody else. I think they eventually chose Toki Deal to go. So music, in the band. I think out of high school, I went to work for Adley Brothers as a purchasing officer and timekeeper. And then when I moved up this way, and I think my first year of coach, we lost to Somerset Trojans again in the cup final. Going to a post-game party a week or so later is where I met my wife. And so I lost the game, but I won a bride. So it was some win-lose right there. But after that, I worked with my brother in his carpenting business. And then eventually had my own carpet installation business. And then got out of that and spent 15 years working for the Bermuda Housing Corporation until I retired.
So you love music. What sort of what instrument did you
play? Alto horn or French horn, as they say. Yeah. But I also singing a couple of choirs and stuff like that. I like music. So.
I hear a lot of French. You know, kind of Montreal Olympic. That's French.
Yeah. French horn.
You support France.
Yeah.
There we go again.
I didn't realize that. Yeah.
A French.
They're listening.
It's a common denominator in there.
Yeah.
Wow. So what was it like in your childhood down in St. George's? You know, what did the boys your age used to do back then?
Well.
To entertain themselves.
Well,
you know?
I mean, it was football.
Other than football.
Where I lived, one of the things that there used to be a vacant lot, a couple of houses behind my house. And from the time you came out of school, we all congregated there to get there early, because when the guys knocked off from work, everybody came there. And you end up with like 30, 40 people who wanted to play football. Like a little neighborhood kick, but it was constant. And it was very competitive, and it helped build the community as well. And that's from there, that's where you got some guys went to play for St. George's College. A friend of mine that played for Wellington, a couple of friends of mine, Neil Painter and Peter Williams, if they didn't play for Wellington Rovers, they'd never play for anybody else, you know. So once the Rovers went out, they actually stopped playing. I think they didn't play much after I left St. George's to move up this way. And they were two of my closest friends, you know. But it was a good place to grow up. I'm glad I grew up down in St. George.
Did any of the traditional, fishing,
fishing,
boating? You did all that?
And kite flying over the golf course and football games and going to the playground area out in Mullet Bay, you know. I really enjoyed. Wouldn't want to grow up anywhere else.
Wow.
I enjoyed my time in St. George.
Cup match, obviously you had cup match.
Oh yeah, I mean, I've been a cup match fan for a long time. Like, you think about where I lived, I could walk to the field in 5 minutes. And I used to go out to watch the cup match team train. Used to help set up for a cup match. One of the things I did on cup match day was a gentleman named Ronald Smith. He used to have a snowball stand. And I used to work with him to get my tray of snowballs and walk around the field and sell my snowballs and then come back. I think I must have been about a teenager before I sat down and watched cup match, because I was too busy earning a shilling selling my snowball.
I was actually going to ask, I'm glad you mentioned that. What was the plane ticket back then? You talked about your first flight. Any idea what about it cost?
No idea.
Okay.
All I needed at that point was my spending money.
Okay. But what about you mentioned talking about cup match. Did you ever play cricket in any other sport?
I played cricket in primary and high school. And I started to play a little bit after I came out of high school, but I got hit by the ball once, and that was enough. The ball was a bit too small and too hard. So.
I've heard others say that.
and basically from late teens to early 20s, it was like football year round for me, because when I wasn't playing club, I was playing for the national team in some way. So we were always doing something involved with football. So I basically focused on that. And one sport was good enough.
So you were a batsman or a bowler?
Bowler.
Your brief cricket. Opening bowler.
Opening bat.
Opening bat.
Spin bowler. A little bit of wicket keeping. So
3 points.
I like to be in the action.
A genuine all-rounder.
Yeah. But I enjoy cricket. I still really like to watch cricket.
Wow, amazing. And then ultimately, once you finish the game, before we get there, any memorable games, what would be the most memorable game in Bermuda, whether it be playing for Colts or Wellington Rovers?
Okay.
Any games that stand out in particular?
Playing in Bermuda.
In Bermuda.
Yeah.
In
I would say playing for Devonshire Colts against PHC at Devonshire Rack in a friendship semifinal. This game was scoreless up into overtime, went into overtime. PHC scored 3 goals, or up 3-0 at the break in the overtime period. And Devonshire Colts came back and won the game 6-3, scoring 6 goals in the second period of overtime.
Wow.
That was one memorable game. That's one that really stands out to me because, both teams were very good teams at the time. I think what also helped us maybe a little bit was that Marcus Douglas and Dr. Jennings, the goalkeeper for PHC, got in a little, scuffle, it was like a friendly and little kick out, and they both got sent off. So we were down a player, they were down a player, but they were down the goalkeeper. So I don't remember who went in goal, but I think that helped us to get those 6 goals, But we were playing well. I can remember Tinty Ming. I think we just dominated the game for the last 50 minutes. And I remember Tinty saying to me, call your dogs off now, we're heading off. Just ease it up a little bit. But that was a really memorable game. Yeah.
Wow, amazing. I wish I could have been around to see this.
Yeah.
I hear of all the the stories of past battles and growing up and the legacies.
Right.
Unfortunately, that was a bit before my time.
Yeah.
However, I did catch a glimpse of you. I believe I might have caught one of your last games, if not the very last game. And if memory serves correct, I believe you went out of the game with Mr. Albert Darrell and maybe Joe Smith. I think that cup final, that FA Cup final against Rangers might have been your
I really don't remember when the last game was, but it could have been that game. Yeah.
Colts got in the FA Cup final and they played Southampton Rangers, and you had come back, and that was the first time, and I think the only time I got to see you play. And Mr. Albert Darrell played, and Joe Smith, and I believe that was it. I think you guys retired after that game. Yeah.
Don't remember.
Yeah, well, I remember because it went to extra time.
Yeah, I do remember.
It went to a replay.
That's right, I remember that.
It went to a replay,
And we lost.
Yes.
The Rangers won, yeah.
Yes, Rangers won their early FA. I think it was 83 or 84 or something.
It must have been my last game.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And but after you retired, you resurfaced in the game as a coach.
Yes.
And a successful one at that. Now, I remember you coaching the national team.
Prior to the national team, I was player coach for Devonshire Colts for a season, I think it was. And then I coached again the next season, just coached, I didn't play. I left there, or got fired, can't remember. Either way, we parted ways. And I was asked if I would be interested in coaching Dandytown. So I went out to Dandytown. Robert Calderon came as my assistant. He called and said he wanted to get involved and he'd like to get an opportunity that we could work together. So he came along and had a very successful year. It was the year that Dandytown won the first 2 major trophies. We won the FA Cup and the Dudley Eve, I think it was. That was played around Christmas time. We beat Somerton in one final and PHC in the other. And I was named Coach of the Year for that. And then it was after that year, they was approached by the association to become the national coach. And the president of the association then was another constant in my life, Donald Dane. He approached me and I said, like why me? I mean, 1 or 2 years of coaching, no real official experience as a coach. And then I said, well, if I decide to do it, what are you going to do to make me better? So they said, we'll send you on coaching courses and so forth. So my first coaching course was actually in the United States. I went to Florida to get my B license or something like that. And then the following year, Fred Pinks Lewis, my assistant then, now at the national team, we went to England to I can't remember the name of the facility now, where most coaches go to get certified. So Pinks and I got our preliminary certificate there, and that was a very interesting experience. I mean, that people from all over the world coming there, and it was on the field, coaching, playing, rain, blow, or shine, for 2 weeks, I think it was. And I remember a group of guys that were there from Turkey, and you could see that they were at some point very, very good players. One of the coaches that were on that course was Manuel Pellegrini, the coach that coached Man City.
Man City, yeah.
He was one of the members of that course at the time. You know. So I took that course, came home, and went back about 2 years later to do the international diploma course. They changed it from the BFA certificate to the international diploma, and that was all nationalities, and that's another very interesting experience. And then came back and coached the national team for 5 years and until '92.
Now, during that 5 years,
Yeah.
you took that team where no other team has gone since. Has gone since.
Yeah, that was
in the World Cup qualifiers.
Yeah.
You know, how far did they get?
We lost in the group stage. The group with El Salvador, Jamaica.
Right. So we
Canada.
progressed to the group stage.
Right.
The only team that's made it that far to the group stage of World Cup qualifiers.
And that was
Wow.
I mean, I remember I was away on the course, and Coach Pinks and I were in the coaching course, and the groundwork was being done here while we were away in preparation for that for the World Cup. And I'm sure it was Pepe Dio, Randy Benyon, the group that Roddy Burchett that were on the coaching committee. And they had put together a program, and it was very good. They said, listen, let's give these guys an opportunity on the coaching side in particular, the same as we would get a foreign coach if we were here. So they had set it up where the team would be together full time for 6 weeks during the duration of those qualifying games. So we were housed at Warwick Camp when we were on island, and in a hotel in Boca Raton, Florida when we were overseas. You know, that was really intense and a wonderful experience to see the support that the team got, and for us to do as well as we did. You know, couldn't get over that hurdle, but we got close. So.
Yeah, but you got beyond the preliminaries,
Yeah.
You know, obviously small Bermuda,
Yeah.
no real expectations,
Yeah.
but we certainly punched well above our weight.
Sure. It was leading up to that. It was the years before. I remember my first game coach as national coach was against Manchester United up at Somerset, and as was we expected, we were competing. We were doing very well. I remember Darrell had an outstanding game, and but it was just a case of them stepping up a gear, and they beat us like 4-0 or something like that. Then the next game was against another English team. Similar thing. We could compete for a while until they decided to really stop playing, and they beat us again. And I remember going to Mr. Dane and saying, listen, I need some opposition where I have a legitimate chance of getting a result, getting a chance to win. So I said, okay, fine, let's do that. So the next thing there was arranged for us to go to Trinidad and Barbados for 4 games down there. And we drew one and won one against Trinidad, won one and lost one against Barbados. And that was all a part of the build up to it. And from there going forward, the people that we had in that team, like Dennis Brown and Lorenzo Simons and Ricky Hill, Kenny Thompson and Brian Anderson and Neil Painter and these guys, they actually felt that they could compete with anybody. They feared nobody. They're a little bit arrogant, but that's just the way they felt, you know. I remember there was a game we were scheduled to play against. We played against Hull City. We went to watch PHC, I think it was, play against them. And in the team meeting, the first thing I remember Ricky Hill saying that we could beat them guys, you know. So we went into the game believing we had a legitimate chance of getting a result. It ended up being a scoreless draw, but it was a very competitive match. And that was kind of the catalyst to get us going. From that point on, we ended up winning games that we weren't expected to win, and we won the games we were supposed to win. So we had a really good run, and I'm saying all that to say that that had a lot to do with how we performed in that round in the World Cup qualifiers. Didn't just happen overnight, it was a progression. The number of players had changed by the time we got to that stage, because, so it was certainly a build-up to it.
So it was a good blend because you had some senior players, well experienced, and then you had some exciting young guys in that.
And then you had
good balance,
right? And then Sean Gooder joined us. Sean was actually with us in the trip to Barbados and Trinidad when we got word that he'd gotten his work permit to go to Manchester United. And then when he came to join us in training and preparation for the game, he brought a level of professionalism that made everybody a better player. Without having to say anything, doing it just the way he performed and behaved in training, made everybody just be better, And we were definitely a better team with the likes of Sean in our team. Any
particular game that stands out most memorable in that historic run in the World Cup qualifiers?
Actually, believe it or not, there's two. The one prior to that run, when we were invited by the USA Association to play against their Olympic team, the under 20 team, down in, I think it was Norfolk, Virginia. Down where Neil Painter and Rip Candy's guys went to school. And we went there expecting it to be just an exhibition game, without a whole lot of frills and no pressure, only to find out that the whole area had invited all the players and the stadium was basically sold out. And it was a case of having to perform. And I think that was the game where we made a tactical change. We moved Sean Gooder from being striker to play as an offensive midfield player. And I think that's probably one of the best performances that the team had during the run up to that there. And the other game was when we beat El Salvador in the first round. The game at home, we beat them 1-0. That was a game that, to me, I felt as if everything we did in preparation came together on the day. All the tactics and the performance you expected from players and what we wanted to do, our game plan, all fell in place, and then we came away with the 1-0 victory, and that was definitely a more satisfying performance.
Yes, and amazing. And I believe Mr. Painter, Neil Painter, had a role to play in that memorable goal.
The goal, that Carl had.
He saved the ball. The ball looked to be going out.
He pulled it back.
He pulled it back.
And the voice after they swung it in.
Somebody swung it in.
Carl had it in.
Kyle Rose, and the rest is history.
Carl had, Carl scored that one. I remember he saying to me, he went on as a substitute for us against Trinidad, in Trinidad. And he reminded me not too long ago about what I said to him before going on. I just said, go on and score a goal for it. And he went on and scored the winning goal. So.
Wow.
Some pleasant memories there. Good experiences.
Wow, amazing. Just so many great memories. You've certainly been blessed.
For sure.
Certainly been blessed.
Like I said, the game's been good to me. So wonderful experiences to it.
And you've been good to the game.
Yeah, thank you.
I salute you. Congratulate you on a wonderful career, and not only are you a role model on the pitch, but equally so off the pitch.
Thank you. Yeah.
And I wish you all the best in your future endeavors. And I want to thank you again for taking the time out to join us. And look forward to seeing you again.
Yeah, it's been a real pleasure. Thanks for having me.
We bump up in the street now and then. So until next time.
All right.
Well, folks, unfortunately, that's all the time we have for today. But I want to thank each and every one of you for joining. And look forward to seeing you again right here real soon here on Up Close with yours truly, Colin Thompson.
This edition of Up Close with Colin Thompson is brought to you by Linda's Group of Companies. Why go anywhere else?